Hello, this is Luke Middlebrook doing the presentation on Coppa, Cipa, and Ferpa. First of all, I'd like to thank both of you, professors, for letting me do this presentation by myself. It allowed me to finish it a little bit early, and I think it's the best for me and another team, so we don't have to worry about my absence. So thank you, first of all, for letting me do this. So what are the purposes of Coppa, Cipa, and Ferpa? Overall, it's protection for our students while they're online. So that's our first goal, implemented by Congress, was to make sure that they are protected whenever they go on the internet. It's protection for their identity and their information. It's also making sure that they see appropriate content and they are not exposed to obscene images. Actually, it goes past just the internet as well. We want to protect their identity and information, whether it's in records or online. So overall, it's just a general protection of what they see, what they experience, trying to collect their information as well as distribution of their information, whether it's online or offline. So COPPA, what is it and what does it stand for? So if we look at COPPA, COPPA is the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. And this is all about having websites not be able to collect information or data on children under the age of 13. So if we are under the age of 13, a website cannot collect our data unless if it receives authorization from a parent to collect data, or it promises to delete the data if it collects it. So as soon as the website is aware that it has 13-year-olds operating or using its site, it has to implement certain structures to ensure that the 13-year-old's data is not used and not distributed or not collected at all without parental consent. So really it's to provide protection of minors, especially under the age of 13, to not collect their data. So we want to keep them anonymous and not have their information floating around. So why we have it because Congress wanted to make sure that we as in corporations were not able to package information and sell it to a third party, and that under the age of 13, before students really start to understand how the policy of the internet works, they're protected from that. So how do we stay compliant? We make sure that we can inform parents and students on which websites they can use, how they can use it, how they can send parental approval for certain websites, and most of all, which websites are safe, and just a general overview for parents and students as well as training them. The next act we have is FERPA, which stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So what this is all about is records for the students' data. When it comes to data, what are we talking about? Well, their grades, their address, their name, their phone number, anything that's associated with the student is considered classified in records that can't be released. So why do we have it? We have it because we want to make sure that the privacy of the student is maintained, and FERPA actually goes past K through 12 into upper level universities. So San Diego State, for example, could not release my documents to someone who asked for them based on FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So my records, my information is held private by San Diego State. Currently, the only person who can access it is me. So say I had somebody, my mom or my dad or my grandparents paying for my education. If they were to ask for my grades, they would not be able to get them. The only people who get my grades right now, based on the Privacy Act, is me. So that's in current terms. If we were to look at it from K through 12, the only people who can access information is qualified educational administrators, those doing audits, accrediting agencies, parents, authorized staff members, and guardians. And so we really want to keep these records safe. So shown in the YouTube video, it is not appropriate to talk about a student's grades with another staff member if it's not approved. So we have to make sure that how can we stay compliant? I guess that's where I'm kind of jumping ahead. We can stay compliant by making sure that staff are trained on what FERPA is, how it's implemented, and give a training process to make sure that we are staying in boundaries. We need to make sure that directory information can be given out, but it has to be given forewarning. So we have to warn the parents about using or distributing directory data so that we can get a response back on not being able to use this. Every year we also have to update the parents on FERPA. So I think an easy way to do that, we make it a newsletter, or we include it in a packet that goes home, and make sure that all parents have access to that. We can put it on our staff website at all times, the school website, saying policies and procedures, and then put it in a small tab just so that we can stay clear that we send it home, as well as having on the website that anyone can access it. And that's a way we can stay compliant with FERPA. Training staff, just having one PD day, talk about FERPA, what it is, the start of every year, one day, maybe it's before summer, include all our staff so all our staff knows, and then also implementing, sending the newsletter out at either the beginning of the year or the middle of the year, just to make sure that parents are aware of what their rights are. Last but certainly not least is Cipa. So what is Cipa? Cipa is the Children's Internet Protection Act. What this is for is protecting students when they're online. So any minor on the internet is protected from obscene content, obscure content, adult content, anything that is not considered appropriate for a person over the age of 18. And how this works, there has to be filters. Websites have to verify that if they have adult content, that it is not able to be seen by minors, so there has to be certain checks to that. And it was implemented so that we could protect children from seeing things that they should not see or be a part of, and just try to keep a separation on the internet and somewhat regulated so it's not the Wild West as soon as a kid gets on a computer. So why do we have it? It's mainly for protection of our children to see appropriate things. So how do we stay compliant as a school? Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to implement the district filter from, not the district filter, the county filter, which provides a filter that's pretty accurate, but we implement that first, and then we find the best filter possible, one that goes and blocks proxies as well as phishing sites and inappropriate sites, because we want to make sure that students are not using proxies to get past our filters to then still access other sites that they're not supposed to be to. Another part of Cipa is E-rate. So E-rate allows for funding to schools and libraries to get reduced internet access based on federal funding. So I wouldn't say federal funding, more like federal regulations on internet access is implemented, because we want to make sure that public utilities and public education systems have internet access at all times. So Cipa is part of E-rate, and the way we can stay compliant with E-rate is making sure that we have filters involved and we have training for our staff to know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate to show to our students. So recommendations for our district. Coppa, inform parents and students of the regulation. So this can be done with spending one day, the first day of the year, first week of the year, talking about what the regulations are with the Online Protection Act and how their information is being recorded if they're over the age of 18, or how they can stay unrecorded when they're under the age of 18. With FERPA, we need to make sure that we restrict access to records for admin staff and office staff. This is very exclusive. We cannot let substitute teachers or general teachers have access to these records. There's no reason they can have access to records at any time. The only people who have access, admin staff, office staff. Look into an intranet with secure access for the entire district. So if we went from having more paper records to a more digitalized access, and we had certain modems which could access the records of the district, I think that'd be a more effective way and a more modern way to implement all the data and keep it very safe. So it's not able to be accessed by internet, it is only an intranetwork. Lastly, for Cipa, install filters and disable proxies on school computers. Train staff and students about proper use of school equipment. We need to make sure that we are getting E-rate, and we need to make sure that E-rate does not go away. And one of the ways we can ensure that is by staying proactive about our equipment and making sure that everyone that uses our equipment does it in a very safe and manageable fashion. So that is my recommendations for our district for Coppa, Cipa, and FERPA. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate it.